Okay, so my name is Bogdan, and the talk today is about the problem of distribution in mobile free-to-play games. So, is this working? Oh, okay. So, yeah, it works. I got it. Okay, now it works. Don't need no remote. Okay, so, okay. A little bit about me. So I graduated computer science. It was great to learn how to build software. It's just like working with Lego, but you never run out of bricks. I started and ran a small outsourcing company for 6 years right out of college, because that was the thing to do back then. I focused a lot on product building, but not enough on selling my services, so that one didn't work out so well. After that, I worked in a US-based startup where it was my first experience in building a product and selling that product to businesses and consumers. I found out that I like the consumer side a lot more, so I switched over to affiliate marketing, which basically means selling other people's products for a commission. And I did that for 4 years. After that, I joined Ovilex in 2020 as the operations manager. Now, a little bit about Ovilex. The company was founded by Ovidio and Alex while they were in college. We develop and publish vehicle simulator games. It's buses, cars, trucks, trains, planes, basically everything with wheels. 10 years going, 30 games launched, and a boatload of downloads. And one of the best things about working in Ovilex is that we control the full life cycle of game development and publishing. So from the idea to the GDD to development and launch, distribution and marketing, and also iterating and improving on our live games. I want to get to where I'm going with the presentation, but first we're going to have to take a little detour. And this next part is going to sound a bit weird, but please bear with me. Don't boo me off the stage. So a bit of ancient history. In 1945, it was game over for capitalism in Romania. There was a transition from the market economy that was pre-war, was pretty good, to a command and control economy, and the focus in the economy shifted to production, basically. There's a lot of engineering going on in colleges, civil, mechanical, electrical, and there was basically zero marketing and advertising being taught. Like the great dictator didn't think you needed advertising. He told you what to buy. So fast forward to modern times. In 1990, the capitalist market system is back. The ability to sell the products that you build and source becomes important again. In time, the IT industry in Romania started growing due to certain key factors. So you had a lot of engineering talent coming out of those colleges. Low cost was definitely a factor. There were subsidies that were put in place by the government, and the fact that the government did not dub over Cartoon Network helped us a lot because we learned English. Okay, IT outsourcing companies start growing by linking local production capacity here in Romania to external demand through sales. And then also IT offshoring happens, which means you start building a product somewhere else and you establish a local office to build certain aspects of that product. The production mindset is still very present in the economy here because of education. Now, a bit about how I see the gaming industry. In general, it's very similar to the IT industry, but there's a twist. So people here have garnered the ability to build and test and iterate on products, but they're also very passionate about products in gaming. So it's a passion-driven industry. Basically, people grew up as gamers, and then they learned how to build games, and then they want to build games. When ability and passion come together, this often happens. So this is a common scenario, and it's probably the saddest slide I had to put in the presentation if you think about it a bit. So you had a team that had an idea for a game. They got together and they worked for 1, 2, 3, I don't know, many years of their lives, their time and effort. And they launched a game, that game with a publisher, or they self-published, and it didn't work. It didn't take off, nothing happened. Now, why is that? This is the problem part of the presentation. I'll give you my opinion on it. So this is what people often think happens when you launch a product. You know, it's so good, if you build it, they will come. This is after a 1980s movie with Kevin Costner where he dreamed up that if he would build a baseball field on his farm, the ghosts of famous players would come out of the cornfield and play a game on that baseball field. This happens in imagination, but it doesn't happen in real life. This is what happens in real life. You need to distribute the games that you build to your players. And I keep throwing this word around, distribution, and I'm going to try and give an answer here. Like, what is distribution, basically? It's, first of all, knowing who your potential players are, and knowing where they are on the internet, and having a way to pluck them from where they are on the internet and get them to install and play your game, and do all of that in a cost-effective way. Okay. So these are some common distribution channels for mobile games. You got your two major food groups here. You got your organics on the left and your paid advertising on the right. On the organic side, you can try and go for search traffic and browse traffic. You can build a community, have a social media presence. Your players, if your game's good, they're going to recommend it to other players. And you can also give them 20 Ruby jewels to do that, so in-game referrals. There are advantages to disadvantages to this. It's cheap, it's decently retentive, but it's unpredictable, it's not that scalable, and it's also subject to the algorithm that does the distribution in the stores. Now, on your right side, you have your paid advertising, basically. Like all those ad networks over there, the Googles, the Apples, the Facebooks, they will gladly let you borrow one of their users and transform them into a player if you pay them money. And there are also some others, like some more exotic things like influencer partnerships. A couple of years back, you couldn't open a YouTube video without hearing about today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. The advantages here, it's scalable traffic, it's very targeted, and you can get immediate results. With paid advertising, of course, there's a cost disadvantage. Now, okay. So this one and the next one are probably the most important slides of the presentation. So if you only take one concept out of the presentation, let it be this one. So the vertical line over there is your magic moment when the player installs your game, right? To the left of it is your distribution, basically. It's where you're finding your potential players and how you're getting them to install your game. And that's the fundamental KPI of that is the customer acquisition cost, how much you pay for a player. On the right side is your game viewed through two lenses. So the first one, the blue one, is the lens of retention. You need retention before you can do anything with your game. Like if somebody installs your game and they look like it and it's shit, put the phone down, you have nothing, basically. So retention forms the basis of your monetization scheme, and if you have retention, then you can monetize that user. And the monetization part is summed up in that LTV concept there. It's lifetime value, how much you make per user. So install in the middle, cost on the left, revenue on the right. What underpins both of these is your data pipeline, basically. Your data pipeline is everything you know about your players before and after they install your game. This is important because if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Okay. Now this is how it works in motion. So you start with distribution, basically. Distribution gets players to your door. It gets them to install your game. After distribution, you work on retention, right? You observe what your players do, and you observe what they say. You gather feedback, and you use that to improve retention in the game. If you have retention, you have a chance at monetization. So the more retention you have, the more chances you have to monetize that player. So it feeds into the monetization, and you increase your revenue per user. Now, if you make higher revenue per user, you can go back to distribution and get more players to install your game because it becomes cost effective. Now, why is this important? It's a universal equation, basically, that determines the success and failure of your game as a business. So if your customer acquisition cost is lower than your lifetime value, you're doing good, you're doing great. If they're equal, you're basically in limbo, you're in purgatory. So you can keep on working on it, but you know it's a more difficult situation. If your cost of user acquisition is huge and your lifetime value is low, you may want to look at abandoning that project. Couple more observations about this CAC versus LTV equation. The timing of lifetime value matters a lot, which means that you generally pay for a user up front, but you can get revenues way, way later. Like they can generate revenues a year from now, and that makes it a little trickier to optimize for. And this equation, customer acquisition cost versus LTV, it's your gross profit, it's not your net profit. It doesn't matter if you have a user, 1 million users, or 10 million users, you still have to pay the light bill. Okay, another reason why it's important is because it can lead to blind spots. So if you have an affinity for a certain part of game production, for example, you want to make a fun game, you tend to develop blind spots around the others, right? like they're gonna solve themselves. Like you need to make some money out of that game, and you also need to distribute. Another way to see these three things, the distribution, retention, and monetizations, is as levers you can pull on. What do I mean by that? Like for distribution, for example, when you pull the lever correctly, you lower your cost of user acquisition. Like say you were running some generic ads and all of a sudden you signed up The Rock and Jennifer Lopez to appear in your ads. That's gonna make them a lot more efficient and your cost of user acquisition is gonna go down, your scale is gonna go up. So with retention, if you pull that lever correctly, you'll keep players for longer in your game. Then there's some examples there, like tuning the difficulty curve, adding more levels, more mechanics, and addressing your funnels. With monetization, obviously, the purpose is to increase the revenue per user. So you give them offers, you tweak the ad load, you calibrate your economy to get the player to spend. If you pull these levers correctly, your costs are gonna go low, and your revenues are gonna go up. Okay, let's look at some scenarios. Sorry, we'll start with the ugly. So this is the ugly scenario you can be in. It's zero distribution channels working. It means you have no players to install your game, which means you cannot work on retention and monetization because literally there's nobody there. So your game is irrelevant to your intended audience. Let's look at the not quite so bad. If you have one distribution channel in place, like one channel is working, your customer acquisition cost is a couple of dollars and you're making $1 or $2 on that user. There's still room to improve here because you have players coming in and they give you feedback and you have data to work with. So this means you can improve your retention, you can improve the monetization to get it up to $2, $3, and you can focus on the distribution channel that's working to try and lower that cost, create the gap, which is gross profit. This is the good scenario. Okay. You have one distribution channel that's working. Players are coming in. You can improve retention and monetization, basically, because you have data flowing through the system. And then your next step is to scale out, which means finding other distribution channels that work. Some of them will be bad, so you can scrap those. Others, they're going to be good, so you can scale them and pursue them and iterate. Others will be marginal, which still means you can work on them, but they will not be a priority. And that's how you scale out. Okay, now I want to talk about different perspectives in a gaming company. This is from my experience at Ovilex. All of these perspectives that you see here are valid and they should complement each other. If they're at odds, you don't have alignment. Basically, what you have is politics. If they're aligned, the company pulls together in a cohesive direction, hopefully the right one. I want to talk a bit, about two additional perspectives that surround a gaming company. So one of them is the marketer, which is the distribution specialist in your company. This person or this department gets allocated a budget, and they're supposed to spend that budget to drive players to your game and generate a satisfactory return on investment, basically. The customer acquisition cost lower than LTV, universal equation. The other perspective I want to talk about is the investor perspective. So what an investor basically does is they try to assess risk and potential reward in order to allocate their capital, their money, and generate a good return on investment. If you look at these two definitions, you're going to see that they're kind of similar. Sort of like a marketer is a form of internal investor, investing in your own products from within your company. The last perspective is the one I'd like to focus on a little bit more. So I deliberately kept the word investor abstract, shall we say. I didn't say gaming VC fund or publisher or your rich uncle who made money off of real estate. But a thing to remember is when you're starting out a project, you are the investor in that project. Like all the money, all the energy, all the effort that you put into it, it's on you. And I want to look at these in different, three more scenarios, shall we say. So the first scenario is a very naive and trivial scenario. You woke up, had a shower, had a great idea for a game in the shower, wrote up a GDD, and you're looking for funding to make it happen. Now, this is what the producer sees, but this is what the investor sees. So a potential investor from the lens of risk, basically, they're going to perceive a lot of risks in this scenario. So I don't know you, you don't have a team, you don't have a product, you don't have a player, you haven't learned how to, figured out how to distribute to players, and obviously profitability is out of the question, and so is scaling up. And the investor is going to be like, no, it's too much risk. Right? I don't want to tackle it. The next scenario is an advancement on this. So you had an idea for a great game, and you put together a small team, and you have a first version of the game. So there's something palpable that you can actually play. The investor perspective here would shift a bit. So, okay, you've proven that you can stick around. You got a team together, and you can develop a product. But I don't know if that product is going to resonate with your audience. And obviously, I don't know if you can distribute it in a cost-effective way, you know, spend $1, make more than $1. Obviously, there's other risks like competition and scaling. This is the situation in which a lot of games that are developed are looking for a publisher, and the publisher's in that weird situation where they have to make a judgment call, right? So it's not necessarily science, it's more like art to determine which games will be winners or not. Now, the third scenario is an advancement on the second one. Got an idea for a great game, you put together a team, you build the first version of the game, and then you soft launched. And you stabilize your game technically, so you can go through a launch, and then you figured out one distribution channel that works for your game. So you could connect with your players, you could reach out to them, you can get them to play your game, and it does make sense economically. So at this point, you need to refine your product, and you need to scale it, basically. So what happens with the investor perspective, it starts shifting again. So a few more risks out of the risk stack have disappeared. So you're not going to rug pull my money. You've got together a team. You can develop a product. You can find a customer. You can distribute to that customer. And there's still work to be done on refinement and scaling up. So the investors are going to be like, that's okay. I can understand that. Put $1 in, get $1.20 out. This is the onion theory of risk, by the way. Okay, so I named the talk the problem of distribution, but it's not just a problem, it's also an opportunity. So what's the opportunity? One second. I think the opportunity is to build great games here in Romania and distribute them profitably to a global audience. Thank you. That was my presentation.